We ready, parrots? You let everybody in?
Hold on. No. Hold on. Let me just change the setting. Okay, I'm gonna also put this onto YouTube, yeah?
Yeah.
Hold on. Speaker view. Cancel. Live on YouTube. Hold on. Going to be broadcasted. It's going to be on the, what's it called? Hold on. Okay, Tzvi, you're good.
Good. Okay, you let everybody in. Who needs to be let in? Yeah? Okay, there's a lot to do. So again, if anybody has questions, please either post it and I'll try and see it. If not, really, if you text it to 718-471-6186, but that's only for tonight. 718 for during the shir. 718-471-6186. And if you text your questions there, and then they'll read it to me, and hopefully I'll be able to be reminded of what I'm probably going to forget to say. So please, if you do have something that you think I should say, please don't hesitate to text that number. And if I don't get it, then unmute yourself and start yelling. Okay, that would be helpful for everybody. I don't have any time constraints. I could really talk for as long as the island wants me to, or until everybody just gets off the call, and then I'll know that I'm done. So even though it's really supposed to be the halachas of the Haggadah, because many people are making the Sedarim for the first time, and meaning first time themselves, and there's people that are alone, so we'll try and answer all those type of questions that we can get to. But before we start that, let's just do some things that are unique about this year. Unfortunately, fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, is about B'dikas Chametz tomorrow night. So first thing is, by B'dikas Chametz, normally it's a big issue in the Paisach whether you should daven Meira first or you should do B'dikas Chametz first. Normally, if you have a minyan to go to later, so we wouldn't tell you to daven b'yechidus and just do B'dikas Chametz right by nightfall, and then you daven Meira later. But now that we don't have a minyan, so some Paisach would tell you to daven Meira first, because tadir, that's the more common thing. Right? Since we daven Meira every night, we only check chametz once a year. Others say not to do that. I think if you know that you're not going to forget to daven Meira, since unfortunately we've all been davening b'yechidus for quite a few weeks, so therefore we probably won't forget. So you can start B'dikas Chametz approximately a half hour after Shkia, which tomorrow night is about, I would say, 5 to 8 o'clock, and then you can daven Meira later. Set an alarm to remind you to daven Meira just to be safe. But if you really want to daven Meira first, that's also okay, but you shouldn't start the B'dikas Chametz later, too much later. You're not allowed to do anything. Once it reaches a half hour, sort of by Shkia time, sunset time, you really can't be Isaac in anything. You can't do anything. You certainly can't eat supper, and you can't start learning, and you can't get busy with anything until you start doing B'dikas Chametz. You could be busy with cleaning and doing Paisach things, because like this you won't forget. But to get involved with anything else, you can't do until you do B'dikas Chametz. You should put out 10 pieces of bread. That's a minhag al pi Kabbalah to put out 10 pieces of bread if you can. Right? There were some interesting shilas where the woman is a nurse, and because they're needed for the corona, so they're not going to be around to put out the 10 pieces, and other people are not going to be. Other nurses are not going to be home. The man is not going to be home. There's a lot of shilas. You think that how would corona affect B'dikas Chametz, but it has. It really has. So, but even if you have to put out the crumbs yourself, or whatever it is that you're putting out, that's also fine. It's al pi Kabbalah that you should have something there to look for, especially nowadays that we clean so well. Yes, you do make a bracha on B'dikas Chametz. If you forget to make the bracha, then you make the bracha later when you do remember, and then you do bittul chametz now, just to be safe, just to make sure you're safe, especially those that are not going to be burning their chametz. and they're going to be flushing it like the Rabbanim have said to do, which we'll get to in a minute. But if so, you should not have too much chametz. Like some people put out these big chunks of chametz and they put out 10 chunks. That's going to be very difficult to flush. So I would advise, I think it's pashut, that you should take smaller pieces that are very small. However, you really want one piece to be at least the size of an olive, or at least that all together, all 10 pieces should combine to an olive, because that would be the mitzvah of burning at least an olive's worth or flushing it if that's what you're going to do. All right, then you say then you say bedika, then you say bittul chametz afterwards, then you put the chametz away, and then the next morning, before whatever the zman is, 10:30, I don't know, I'm not sure what the zman is, you check the calendars, you make sure to burn the chametz. Now, with the burning the chametz, they don't want people out in the streets making fires, so therefore there's no public fires in most cities, as far as I know, and therefore they don't want gatherings of people making fires together, which is what takes place normally. So to be safe, they just were telling everybody to just put it flush it in the bathroom. However, if you have a barbecue grill, I really see no reason. I think many of the Rabbanim are saying this, that if you have a barbecue grill, and it's a chametz barbecue grill, which most are, because they're very difficult to kasher, but we're not getting involved in that now. So you just take your chametz and put it into the barbecue grill and burn it that way. And if you burn it a little bit and it's not burning, then wait for it to cool off, take it, and then you could flush it. Whatever it is, that's a simple way to do it. If you don't have it, then we can go with it's a chumrah just to burn the chametz. So then you could just flush it. And then don't forget, people forget to say the second bittul chametz, the kol chamira, that you say in the morning. Okay, all right. So that's okay. This is not a bittul. This is not.
How burned does it need to get?
It is, and that it's not edible. You want it to get burned enough that it's not edible. If you put it down into the bottom of the grill, it should be enough. Right? Okay. So that's that. So now we start with the more important halachas. Just first we'll do Erev Paisach halachas. Right? So shaving, haircuts, and nails. A lot of people ask this question. Before that, is it also to do malacha on Erev Paisach? So now Erev Paisach is a Yom Tiv in itself, because that's the day they brought the carbon Paisach. Therefore, you don't say in Sukkot de Zimri, you don't say Mizmer l'Saida, because there was no carbon Taida, and then you don't say that throughout the whole Paisach, because that was Chametz. Right? And it's a Yom Tiv, so even though really you're allowed to work before Chatzos, but many have the minhag not to go to work. Obviously, if it's necessary, then you go to work. Oh, we want to discuss the siyum. Somebody just flashed the siyum. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we'll discuss the siyum. The siyum, most paiskim are saying that you could hear a siyum on the phone or on Zoom. However, even those paiskim say that l'chatchila, you should have a siyum with somebody who you at least know, or at least somebody from your shul. And then it shouldn't be that you eat just the plain breakfast. You should have something special, like a l'chaim or something like that, extra special l'kavod the siyum, and then you do it over the phone. There are many paiskim that are saying not that the siyum on the phone does not work. Okay, so then what do? No paiskim, as far as I know, are saying that you should fast. Right? They're saying that really there's no chiyuv to fast, and what you can do is give tzedakah, the equivalent of what you would eat in a day, and that would be enough to. That would be like your paida, your fast. That's you're redeeming it. Which is what a lot of poskim say if somebody chas v'sholem drops the tefillin. So even though you're really supposed to fast, but a lot of poskim say nowadays that we fast, we're terrible fasters. So if you just pay tzedakah the amount that you would eat that day, let's say $5, $10, and you give that to tzedakah, and then you're okay, which is what somebody should do if it's not going to hurt to give tzedakah anyways. So those are your two options: either hear a fast on Zoom, or on the phone, and if not, then give enough tzedakah of how much you eat for the day, and then that would be enough to take care of the fast. Okay, fine. Now, so after chatzos, though, it's any amount. It's amount that you would eat in a normal day. Yeah. Now, if I start going back to something, that's because I noticed somebody flash a question on the screen. After chatzos, though, has a halacha of chalamayid. Okay. Which means that there's no more haircuts and no more shaving and cutting nails. So therefore, that should all be done before chatzos. Chatzos is around 1:00. Okay, now in other years, if you didn't shave before Chatzos, so you always had an option of a guy shaving you or a guy giving you a haircut. Nowadays, that's pretty much not an option. So it's very, very schwer, it's very complicated. It's very difficult to be lenient in order to allow taking a haircut. But push comes to shove, there are places that would allow it. Cutting nails should also be done before Chatzos. That's already more lenient. If you didn't cut your nails before Chatzos, then you're allowed to cut your nails after Chatzos, but really it should be done first. The phone number, again, if you have any questions, text is 718-471-6186, 718-471-6186, okay? Laundry should also lechatchila be done before Chatzos, if you can, okay? No, then there's no matzah. If anyone wants to follow on about what I'm going, I sent out today a sheet, a link on the WhatsApp and the text, whatever, a sheet about this. So I'm going basically along with whatever's on that sheet. No matzah on Erev Paisach, right? That's another thing. But if kids can have, like, let's say people make chicken that have matzah in it for kids, 100% it's allowed. That's no problem. Okay. Then we get to Erev Paisach. It is important. It's a stressful day, especially nowadays. There actually, the Svarim say, I don't remember who it was that says it, that there's like a special Yetzer Hara for people to get upset, Erev Paisach and Paisach by night, to try and ruin the Seder. So it's extremely important, especially this year when everybody's very tense, that we all have to try and be calm and besimcha by the Seder. A lot of that has to do with getting sleep, right? So if somebody could potentially take a nap, at least even for a few minutes on Erev Paisach, it's probably would be a good thing if you can get that. Which one?
Zman.
For what? For what?
Hilchos.
It's l'chatchila, we go with the earlier Zman. For Pesach, we're machmer to go for the earlier Zman, but if it's necessary, you go with the later Zman. Okay? Fine. So anyway, so it's very important to try and keep calm, because inevitably the Yetzer Hara tries to make it stressful by the Sidarim. The table should be set before Yom Tov so that you can start with the Sidarim right away. Now, there's a lot of people don't do this, but in the old days it certainly was done very much, and a lot of people still do it nowadays. Is you go through your matzahs before Pesach, because sometimes matzahs have folds in them that are very thick, and there could potentially be chametz. So people would go through all their boxes of matzahs in order to check to see if there's any potential chametz and break it off and get rid of it. Nowadays, that our matzahs are very, very thin, it's really not required and not necessary. But certainly before the Seder, you should go through your matzahs and pick out your 3 matzahs. Meaning, when you come home from Ma'ariv, unfortunately we're not coming home from Ma'ariv this year, but when Ma'ariv's over, then you start looking for your matzahs. That should all be done in the afternoon so that you're ready to start the Sidarim right away. And that's because you don't want the kids falling asleep and you don't want to lose the energy and all that. And then you start looking for your matzahs in 3, and then they're cracked and you can't find. That should all be done. That should all be done before Pesach. Right? Fine. Now we'll start with the Sidarim. So, there's another issue this year. Those that say Hallel, right? There are many shuls, mostly Chassidim, that have a minhag to say Hallel in shul with the bracha after Ma'ariv. Question is, this year when we're davening alone, should you say that Hallel or not? That's a machlokes a Paisach. The default seems that you only make it with the bracha. That's a good question. Thank you. You only make it with a bracha if you're davening with a minyan. Okay, so what I'm telling people is that if they want to say Hallel, they should say it, but don't do it with a bracha. Since it's suffix brachas, why should you make a bracha if it's a suffix? Whether you should make a bracha on that Hallel. If you want to say the Hallel, that's fine, even though you're going to be saying Hallel again later. So there's nothing to be gained by saying the Hallel before saying it by yourself. Meaning, on a normal year, you say it in shul with a minyan, so saying Hallel with a minyan has a big advantage, right? This year that you're not saying with a minyan, so what's the difference? You say the Hallel after Ma'ariv, and if you're going to say it again during the Seder. Okay, now what's the time for the Seder? The Seder really should not start before nightfall. So whatever you keep for nightfall, then you should try and keep for the Sidarim. However, you don't have to keep 72, that's for sure. 42, 35 minutes after Shkia, 42 minutes after Shkia is you shouldn't start before then. Really, Ma'ariv should be after, right? Because you want it you want Ma'ariv, which is when you're making Kiddush and Shemona Esrei, to be when it's for sure Paisach, right? When it's Vadei Laila. But if you can't do that, and the kids are your kids are are complaining or whatever, getting tired, so then you can at least make sure that Kiddush won't take place until after Tzvi. So for 42 minutes after, for sure, you can do, right? 50, you want to make it a little better, 50. I guess you can attempt getting it rolling at 42, and then by the time you finish with all the preparations, probably you'll take till 50, I would imagine. Okay? We say Simonim. Many have the minig that before the Seder, you go through the whole thing. You say Kadesh Orchatz just as a sort of like as a hakdama, right? To tell everybody what the order of is of the Seder, even though everybody knows what it is. And before each and every one of the Sedarim, meaning Kadesh, you announce Kadesh, and then Orchatz, then Karpas, so on and so forth. I believe this year it would be worth our while, before we start saying the Sedarim, is to announce that this year we are being Mekayim a mitzvah of saving nefashos by all of us in some way, shape, or form, sacrificing on the Paisach. And it would be kedai maybe to mention at some point in the night that this Paisach, although it seems like it's a depressing Paisach, we should try to be mechazik ourselves that we're doing the Ratzon HaBoreh, and we are trying to we are saving lives by making Paisach like this so crazy. Right? It's a big mitzvah. Every second that we're doing this Paisach, that we're not with family or whatever it is, alone. Many are alone. We're doing this to save lives, and there's no bigger mitzvah than that. Okay, so now Kaddish. All right. So if possible, you're not supposed to pour yourself. You're not supposed to pour the wine for yourself. You're supposed to pour for somebody. Everybody's supposed to pour for somebody else. But really, the halacha is just for the leader of the Seder is the one that's not supposed to pour his own. And somebody's supposed to pour for him. Everybody else, it's not an issue. Obviously, if you're there for yourself, then you just pour for yourself. Okay. Also, it might be worthwhile that before each one of the mitzvahs that you're doing, it should be announced by the person leading the Seder which mitzvahs are going to be done. So, for example, before Kiddush, we're doing at least 3 mitzvahs during the actual Kiddush, right? Kiddush, which is making the day holy, discussing the day, right? And then in Kiddush is Mitzrayim. It says Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim. So that's already starting over the story of Mitzrayim. And then there's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan of the 4 cups, right? So those are 3 mitzvahs right away that you're doing right when you make Kiddush. Now, let's discuss what type of wine, and this goes for all the cases. Most Paiskim say that grape juice is enough. Interestingly enough, in Eretz Yisrael, where they're usually more machmer than us, in Eretz Yisrael, they're very lenient, and most of Eretz Yisrael, as far as I know, have grape juice. In America, the reason why in America it's more chomer is because Moshe Feinstein was of the opinion that you need to have wine, not grape juice, because wine makes you happy. Grape juice does not make you happy. So therefore you have wine, and wine, when you drink wine, it makes you more happy. So that's more of a chayrus. It's more of showing freedom, which is what this night is all about, is showing that we're free. Right? That being said, you can certainly rely on the Paiskim to drink grape juice, and that is fine. There's a little bit of misunderstanding with what type of wine. Yes, mavushal wine is better not to have yayin mavushal, and that's because any fancy wine, I'm no wine connoisseur, but that's what they tell me, that fancy wines are not mavushal. They ruin the taste of the wine a little bit. It takes it down a notch from its chashivas. And that's why mavushal wine is not a problem of a zara, because it's inferior wine, and therefore they're not going to be makrivet to Avodah Zara, which makes it. That's why we're allowed to have, a guy is allowed to touch wine that's mavushal, because it doesn't have chashiva. So therefore, for kiddush, it's better to have mavushal. That being said, it's better to, but it's not ma'akiv. And if the wine that you're gonna like is mavushal, then go with the mavushal. Same thing with, if you ask the average kid by the Seder, or anybody by the Seder, whether you're supposed to have red wine or white wine, so they're going to tell you, of course, you should have red wine, because that has to do with the blood. That's not the main reason to have the red wine. Red wine is considered better than white wine. So the main, again, we're looking, just like we're looking to have regular wine that's not cooked, not mavushal wine, because it's better. We'll also have red wine, which is better. That being said, right, then there's another reason, there's a second reason, that because of red, because of the blood, right? What's the difference between the two reasons? The difference between the two reasons is not what would be a difference between them would be if you take your white wine, should you add a little bit of red wine to it to change the color, right? If the reason is because you want it to be red, so then it's worthwhile to change it. But if it's because your white wine is not as good as red wine, so adding a little bit of red color is not going to do anything for you. The main reason is because red wine is better. So therefore, it's better to have red wine. However, again, if you like white wine better, what's the name of that blue wine? Whatever that blue wine, which is white, if that's what you like, so then it's better to go with what you like this, you're feeling more freedom. Okay, again, a lot of these things that we're saying, it's in the ultimate case. But again, if you don't like mavushal wine, if you don't like non-mavushal wine, if you like white wine better, then go with that, right? It can't hurt to add a little bit of red to go with the other reason. And by the way, if you're going to add it, then you should add it before Yom Tif, because that's like dyeing the food. Meaning you're not supposed to dye anything. It's coloring the food, even though we say normally we pass that you're allowed to color food. Otherwise, those coffee drinkers now, they wouldn't be able to make coffee on Shabbos because they're dyeing their water black. So we don't pass like that. But here, it's more of an issue because you're taking your white wine and making it into red purposely, and you want it to change color. Okay, so that's that. Now, how much of the cup should you drink? So there's really, basically, there's all different opinions, but the basic three opinions are 5.2 ounces. That's the Chazon Ish. And then Rabbi Feinstein is about 3.3 ounces. And then the minimum share, not the basic smaller share, is 2.9 ounces would be Reb Chaim Noah, right? So those are the three opinions. Again, 5.2, that's the best, 3.3, and then 2.9. Now, let's understand what we're talking about here. We're not talking about that's how much you have to drink. A lot of women who are not feeling well, men who are not feeling well, pregnant women, or people that are recovering from illness and all that, think that they have to drink 2.9 ounces. No, that is not that's the size of the cup that you need, not how much you have to drink. Okay? When we're saying 5.2 ounces, that means that you have to have a cup the size of that holds 5.2 ounces. How much do you have to drink of that? We'll get to that in a minute. Okay? But what we're talking about is the kois. 5.2, 3.3, 2.9. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one other thing, is that if you want to mix wine with grape juice, so in order to be considered wine, 4% alcohol is what's considered wine. Less than 4% is not really considered wine. So there is some kedem kal. There's one that's 3.5. There's one that's 4.5. I don't remember the names of which particular type. So you should try and have 4%. So if you want to mix in grape juice with wine, you still want it to be considered wine. So you just have to figure out the math, what percentage of wine you're mixing in with the grape juice, and then you have 4% wine. Again, wine is a chumrah. Okay, so now getting back to the kois. We're going to get to that. Yeah. So now, how much should you drink of the kois? The best, there's 4 levels. The best is to drink the entire cup, regardless of how big the cup is. Okay, so if you have a cup that's 10 ounces, it would be best for you to drink that entire cup in one sit, not sitting, but in one, I don't want to say gulp, that's very difficult to do, in one, just not swig, whatever the word is, you want to drink it all at once. That would be the best, meaning regardless of how big your cup is. Then the next best is, if you can't do that, then drink most of the cup regardless of how big the cup is. Meaning, so if you had a 10-ounce cup, have 5.1 ounces of that. Then the next level is a revius, right? Which according to the Chazon Ish is 5.2 and Ramesh is 3.3 or 2.9. And then the next best is roiva revius. You have to have most of a revius. You have to have, regardless of the size of your cup. So most of a revius. So if you go with the Chazon Ish, I hope I'm not being confusing here, but if you go with the Chazon Ish, 5.2, so you have to have 2.6 ounces of wine if you want to do the Chazon Ish. If you want to do it like Ramesh, it's 1.6, 1.7 of ounces, and the least share is also at 1.5. You'd be enough. that's enough to drink. So a lot of people get nervous. How am I going to drink that much wine? How am I going to drink that much? It's really not that much. You don't have to drink the entire cup. Obviously, it's better to, but if you can't, then the ikar one is that you have most of a revius, which is really your own cheekful, which comes out to be around 1.5 ounces, 2.5 ounces, whatever it is. But if you want to go with the minimum share, to be 1.5 ounces, which is really, it's about a shot glass, a little bit more than a shot glass, which I think is very doable. The halach is very clear. Better to have a small cup and drink the entire cup than to have a large cup and not to drink the entire cup. Right? So meaning sometimes you have a guy who comes to the Seder with a big glass. Right? So here, this cup right here is about a 7-ounce cup. Right? So it's not so easy to drink that full of wine, especially if it's a dry wine. So better to go out. Now, again, we don't have that. We won't want people going out nowadays. So if you don't have it, then don't do this. But you should really go out and buy something smaller. Better to have a smaller and drink the whole thing than to have bigger and not be able to drink the whole thing. It's more, because it's considered more chashuv if you finish the whole thing.
Is there a zman that you have to drink it by?
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a second. Okay? So that's the amounts. Right?
What are the hierarchy, the different hidurim? If I can only find dry wine, but it's not red, or
right.
A bushel wine, but it's not.
Which is more important?
Yeah,
I would say that mavushal is important. I don't know. It's hard to say. Red is probably more important than white, and then mavushal. That's the order that I would say. There's an interesting question. Like, is it better if you're going to have grape juice, you'll be able to drink the whole cup at one time, which is me personally. And if I have wine, I'm going to have a much harder time. So what's better, to have grape juice, which you're losing the hiddur of Ramosha Feinstein, but you'll be able to drink the whole cup? Or is it better that you have wine, but not be able to drink the whole cup? That's an interesting question. It's not so simple either way to go with that, right? If you can't drink it all in one drinking, then the 2 minutes is the really preferred time that it should take for you to drink that whole cup. Okay, 2 minutes and up until 9 minutes to drink the whole cup. Okay, so that's really something that should be done. I think within 2 minutes, most people should be able to drink most of their cup. At 9 minutes, I would think for sure. Right, but again, if you're not feeling well, then it's not necessary. It's a hiddur. Okay, so again, just to chazer over, the 4 levels are: drink the whole cup, no matter what size it is. The next, to drink most of the cup, no matter what size it is. And then the next is a revius. And then the next is roiv of revius. That you have to have. In order to be yod to the mitzvah of kaisos, you have to have roiv of revius. Okay? Also, if you're going to do it in a few sips, that's fine. Not as good, but it's fine, but no talking. You shouldn't be talking until you finish whatever amount it is that you're going to be yod to. Okay? Now, leaning, okay? Heseba is one of the mitzvahs of leaning. Shows freedom. Well, then you're supposed to lean in order to show that you are free, right? Because in the old days, that's the way kings and nobles and people that were chashuv, so they leaned while they ate. Okay, so now, for women, don't have to lean nowadays. And the reason for this is that really nowadays, we don't lean when we eat. So the Rav Yah said that nowadays there's no reason to, I don't say there's no reason, but maybe leaning is not so important because we don't lean when we eat, and we're in when we're in a good relaxed mood. Nobody leans when they eat nowadays. So therefore, two things. So therefore, women can rely on that; they don't have to lean. And 2 is that a man, even if he doesn't lean, so if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, if you didn't lean, you have to drink the cup again, which I imagine many men would probably not like to lean, so then they can drink another cup, right? But that's not the proper thing to do, right? You should lean, and you have to lean. If you didn't lean, then the ikar halacha is you have to drink it again, but we rely on the Rav Yah nowadays, who says that really you don't need to lean. We don't paskin like him, but we use him that if you did not lean, then you can rely on the Rav Yah and you don't have to repeat. Now, how do you lean? I don't know if you'll be able to see here, but leaning in the air, we'll try and do this, okay? Leaning in the air like this, which is what many people do, you're just leaning in the air, is nothing according to all opinions. That's not anything comfortable, and it's not relaxing. What you have to do is you have to lean on something. the simplest thing to do is to take another chair, which I don't have it here, but if you have a chair and you lean on the chair, then that's a little bit relaxing. Or lean on the person next to you if you're in a very packed Seder, which unfortunately most people are not this year. And you can lean on the person or lean on the person's chair, the back of the chair of the person next to you. Or you can, if you don't even have that option, you can turn your chair sideways and you can lean on the side of your chair that way. But leaning in the air, just leaning that way, is not doing anything for you, and then you're going to stain your kittel or your shirts for no reason, right? At least if you're leaning properly, then the stains that end up dripping all over you are done for a good reason, right? But again, leaning is not into the air is nothing, okay? Another common question that comes up is, can you drink in between the first course and the second course? So the halacha is that really you can, but it's preferable only to be water. And the Shulchan Aruch Harav says that water should be on the table by Kiddush. Like this, you don't have to make another bracha. We don't want you adding brachas into the Seder. So therefore, if you want to, that's really the issue with the drinking in between. So if you have water on the table, then you'd be allowed to drink. Okay, as if you're thirsty, then you're allowed to drink. There is a mitzvah to constantly be giving out nuts. More wine in between is really not preferred, but it can tell you that it's also certainly shouldn't be a full cup, because then it looks like you're adding a cup to the seder, which is part of the issue with repeating. If you don't lean to have another cup, then it looks like you're adding another cup to the seder. Okay. There is a mitzvah to give out nuts. The Shulchan Aruch says to give out nuts to kids. I don't think giving out nuts to kids is going to do anything for anybody nowadays, but candies, toys. My brother Peretz, who we, by the way, all big thank you for arranging all these shiurim. He's the daf, if you're looking through. He's the daf in the blue shirt. We can give him a thank you. But anyways, he's in charge normally in our family of he took himself off. Okay. He's normally in charge in our family of getting these little toys to give out to the kids. And, that keeps them interested. You're supposed to keep the kids interested. It's all about the kids. It's all about saying it over to the kids. And if you're doing a Seder by yourself, then get yourself a treat. You certainly deserve a treat if you're doing a Seder by yourself to keep you interested. Now, when you should give out those toys to the kids, that's up to whoever, because inevitably they can get preoccupied with the toys as opposed to the Seder, and the candies as opposed to that. So different ways of doing it, but candy for sure, that's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to get candy to keep everybody interested. Okay. Well, it's late. There's no bracha on the water. That's why we want the water to stay on the table by Kiddush. If you know you're going to need to drink water, so leave it on the table from Kiddush, so you don't have any brachas shilas. Okay, now urchatz. So of course the big question everybody asks by urchatz is, why do we wash our hands for dipping vegetables on Paisach by night? The question really is the opposite. The halacha is that when you eat a vegetable a whole year round, you dip it in liquid, you're supposed to wash your hands. Our meaning became that we don't. But theoretically, the halacha is that if you have a pickle, most pickles come in liquid, you have to wash your hands before you eat that pickle. Some places can even want to say that you take a French fry and dip it into ketchup. That's also taking a vegetable and putting it into a liquid. We don't do that nowadays. But Pesach by night, when we're being holier, so therefore that's why we do it. Some have the meaning only the leader of the Seder washes the hands, and many say that the reason why we decide to do it on Pesach by night is one, because we're holier, and others say because we want the kids to ask, hey, how come you're washing tonight in order to eat a vegetable that's in liquid? And then you say, well, because the night is different, and then that's how the story goes. No bracha on Netilas Yadayim, though, because that we don't do all year round either. We don't make a bracha. Even those that are machmer, which you shouldn't be, right? But even those that are machmer don't make a bracha all year round. Fine. Karpas, you take less than a kazayas. That's tough because everybody's hungry. When it gets karpas, they're finally getting some food, and they get the potato or whatever it is that you dip in, whichever vegetable it is that you're dipping into the salt water. By the way, the salt water should lechatchila be made before Yom Tov, even though you can make it if you didn't make it before. But you dip it in, and you're supposed to have less than a kazayas. The reason why you're supposed to have less than a kazayas, which is around an olive's worth, is because if you have more than a kazayas, then you have to make a bracha achrona. And we don't want you to have to make a bracha achrona. You don't have to lean when you eat the potato. You can lean if you want. When you make the Bar Pri Adam, as everybody knows, you have in mind the Mora. Why do you have in mind the Mora? Because the Mora is not really part of the meal. So you want to make a Bar Pri Adam, because meaning only foods that are normally eaten during a meal become potter when you make hamotzi. So Mora is not normally eaten as part of a meal, even if you normally eat horseradish. But Mora in that way is not part of the meal. So therefore you make Bar Pri Adam before on the karpas and have in mind the Mora. Right, but if you didn't have in mind the Mora, that's okay. You will not make a bracha on the Mora. Okay, that's basically karpas. Yeah.
What happens if you eat more than kazayas?
If you eat more than kazayas, you don't make a bracha achron, but you should try not to. Okay.
Cut your potatoes small.
Yeah, you cut them, or you just make sure whoever's putting out the potatoes cuts them small. Okay, yachatz, you break the middle matzah, you put the larger piece away for afikoman. And the basic reason why to put the larger piece away and keep the smaller pieces, because afikoman also requires you eat 2 kazayas, which we'll get to. So therefore, you want to have a large piece for that. By matzi matzah, you are going to have other matzahs to combine with it. So therefore, we want to keep the big one for the afikoman. But you want to make sure that when you break it, you want to have at least 1 kazayas in the small piece and 1 kazayas in the big piece. Meaning, if you break it, try and break it down the middle, okay? And then you're supposed to actually wrap up the big one and put it in the bag. And then depending on the minig, whether you hide it, the person leading the seder hides it, or somebody else hides it, and the person with the seder has to get it. That doesn't, whichever way you go with that. If you're making the seder by yourself, then you just put it. You can just put it to the side, and you'll get it afterwards. Okay, magid. Okay, so magid is the main part of the Godah. First thing that you have to do is you should announce to everybody that before magid it's a mitzvah d'oraisa. Right, it's a mitzvah from the Torah that we're doing to say over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So that should be announced before starting the Seder, that's the main part. That's one of the mitzvahs d'oraisas. The 4 cups, like we said, is only the Rabbanim. Right? So we start with Halach Ma'anya, and then the Seder plate should be...
Is there a mitzvah to keep all the kids, or just the ones that understand?
The mitzvah is only for really kids that understand, not for kids that don't understand. Right? You lift up the Seder plate when saying Halach Ma'anya. Whenever you lift it up, okay, so then most don't pour the wine until after Halach Ma'anya, right? We pour that cup, even though we're not going to be eating it, drinking that cup for a long time, you still pour it then because you want to say the Haggadah, even though we're saying the Haggadah over Lechem Aini, but still we want to pour that second cup before we start Magid, right? You don't have to wash out the cup after the first cup before the second cup. Some people think that you have to be machmer because now it's a dirty kais, right? Just like you don't make kiddush from a kais that's dirty. So the second cup is a separate mitzvah. So people think, okay, you have to go and you have to wash out the cup. You don't have to, because the leftover wine from the previous cup is fine. Okay, and even if you don't finish the cup, then you can also just add to it. Okay, it's preferable once you pour the second cup not to drink water anymore. Okay. Now, when you're saying the Haggadah, the default is that the matzah should always be open, right? Meaning the matzah on the ka'ara, on the plate, wherever you have the matzah, on the side, on the bottom, wherever it is, the matzah, the default is that the Haggadah is supposed to be set over lechem oini, which is the broken piece of matzah. So therefore, the matzah should always be open. The only time we cover over the matzah is when we lift up the cup of wine to say whatever it is that you're saying, halal and the brachas, whatever it is, then you cover over the matzah. Okay, there's an interesting chumrah that no other matzah should be on the table until it comes time to be matzah, meaning when you're making a large seder, which unfortunately not enough people are doing this year, there's a lot of extra matzah that you want to bring. That matzah should not be brought to the table, according to many. That matzah should not be brought to the table until later. You want to just say the Haggadah over the broken piece of matzah and the other 2 matzahs. Again, if it's brought to the table, again, one thing is for sure, no getting anybody stressed out. That's the main yesod over here by the Haggadah. No getting, somebody brings extra matzah, don't say, no, I learned it, take it off. No stress. The main thing is no stress, because the Yetzer Hara is looking to make stress, especially this year. Okay? Yeah. Then we say the Manishtana. And the Manishtana, the younger children should go first before the older children. Okay, and the questions should be, if the kids don't know what they're asking because they're just doing it by rote, maybe this year is not such a issue because unfortunately we don't have school. But if they're not sure what the questions are, then one certainly should explain to them the questions. Okay. The Haggadah, the main point of the Haggadah of Magid is that everybody at the table understands what's being said. Many people want to say, gematrias and varts and this and why it did this and all. That's all very nice. But the main thing to understand is what's going on in Haggadah and what the Haggadah is trying to tell you. Okay? So the kids have to understand the basics. You really want to understand what what Rabbi Gamliel towards the end of Magid is the main part of the Haggadah, and that's the Paisach, Matzah, and Mara. Those are the things that should be explained to a child. Explain to them earlier if they're going to run out of gas before you finish Magid. So then you should explain that to them. But the main thing is that the women and children and people that are new, Balei Tshuva, whatever it is, the main thing is to sit and explain to them what the Haggadah is trying to say. It doesn't have to be a word-for-word translation, but at least something, which means that usually it requires some sort of preparation on the person who's leading the Seder to be able to explain things. Now, if somebody is going to have a hard time understanding it in Hebrew, then parts of it can certainly be said in English. Okay. Also, another thing is the women don't have to get stressed out because it's something important for men to realize that it's difficult. The women want to be part of the Haggadah, but they also have to make sure that the meal is going to be served, right? So they got to be running back and forth to the kitchen to make sure the soup is okay and make sure the kugel or whatever it is that's going to be eaten, and they don't want to miss. So it can be a little bit of a juggle, and it should be the men should be sensitive to either wait for the woman, or if there's going to saying over something nice and the woman feels bad that she's being excluded. So these are things that you have to take into account to make sure everybody's included in the Seder. Okay, I'll just say something, just a simple pshat that not everybody realizes. Like a lot of these things are coming from the Gemara and Psachim, right? These are not just the Haggadah. Just wasn't. This is coming from a lot of it's coming from Tanoim, Geonim. It's not clear exactly who compiled the entire Haggadah together. But for example, the Haggadah either starts from it's actually machlokes in the Gemara, right? The Mishnah says we're supposed to start with the negative and then end off with the positive. So it's a machlokes in the Gemara between Rabbi and Shmuel. What is the positive and what's the negative? I mean, do we start from Avodim Hayinu L'Farei B'Mitzrayim, right? Which is when we went down to Mitzrayim, or are we supposed to start the Haggadah before that from Mitchila Avdei Avodah Zarah Hayinu, right? And then with Lavan we start from there. So that's a machlokes, right? Who do we paskin like? So as if anybody remembers from last year, we paskin like both. We say Avodim Hayinu, and we say Mitchila Avdei Avodah Zarah, right? So we paskin like both. What's interesting, and I saw this in Haggadah from Rabbi Rimon from Machon Yerushalayim, a very good Haggadah. So he basically says, and I'm not saying what, I'm trying to just say the pshat, is that the Manashtana starts with 4 questions. And what's the answer to the Manashtana? Avodim Hayinu, right? So that's one psak. We paskin like that. I don't remember who's who, Rav or Shmuel. Then we go and we say 4 questions. What's the next 4 questions? We go with the 4 sons, right? The Chacham, the Rasha, the Tam, and the Einei Yedei L'Shol. Each one has a question. If you notice, each one has a question, which is the equivalent of the Manashtana. And what's our answer? Mitchila Avdei Avodah Zarah, right? So we're paskining like Rav and like Shmuel. Again, we're doing the Manashtana. That's 4 questions, and we're answering Avodim Hayinu. That's like one opinion in the Gemara. And then we say 4 questions of the 4 sons, and we answer them with the other opinion, which is that we have to back it up and start with Yaakov Avinu going down to Mitzrayim. Right, so these are the type of things just to break down the Haggadah and to make it clear for everybody what's going on. Right, the Haggadah is not said while leaning, as much as everybody would love to lean while they say the Haggadah, which usually induces sleep. Right, but the Haggadah is supposed to be said with fear and awe, and you're supposed to say it like as if you're davening. So you're supposed to be sitting up, and those that wear hats and jackets should be wearing their hats and jackets. If you wear hats and jackets for davening, you should be wearing your hats and jackets and ties, I think. But again, that's not ma'akev. If somebody's getting stressed out about it, then let it slide. But meaning the Haggadah is important to be said. Right? Fine. Then we dip the fingers into the wine by the 10 makas. Right? If somebody, especially this year, people are worried about cleanliness. Right? So people do not want to be sticking their fingers into the wine. Right? So if that disgusts you, then you can just spill out a little bit of each one. Whether you should refill the cup before the next kais, because that's a machloikis. It's not really necessary to do that unless you really spill out a lot. Okay, so again, you don't have to stick your finger in. You can spill out a little bit. There's different minhagim whether you should put this finger or the pinky. It seems like in Mishnah Berurah it says to put the finger, but many people have the minhag to just do the pinky. It's not ma'akev. Okay.
Does
Now,
everyone can say the Haggadah, or one person can say it for everyone?
so that's really dependent on the minhag. The problem is that nobody knows anybody else's minhag because you're always home. You try and always be in a home. You're home for the Haggadah. Although you have to ask people that go around and have been many places what the different minhagim are. I think most hold that you should at least say first. Certainly the basics, the Rebbe Gamliel, you should say, but again, whatever's going to make you understand it better should be done that way. But best is it should be said by everybody. It's really not that long. When you get down to it, it's really not that long. It's just all the vertelach and all that takes a long time. Okay, the main part, like we said, is Rebbe Gamliel, that you have Pesach matzah umar, right? So you're supposed to, when you say matzah, you're supposed to lift up the matzah, or at least point to the middle matzah, because that's the main matzah here. And when you're up to maror, you lift up the maror, point to the maror. But when you get up to Paisach, you don't point to the shank bone or the wing or whatever it is that you have on there that represents a korban Paisach. And that's because then it looks like you're keeping a korban Paisach. You're doing a korban Paisach outside of when we don't have the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, you shouldn't point at it. You just say it. Okay. Parenthetically, there's an interesting halacha that when you're talking about your meat for Pesach, you shouldn't say this meat is for Pesach, either before Pesach or on Pesach. You say this. Don't say this meat is for Pesach, because then it sounds like you're making the meat into a korban Pesach. Again, it doesn't affect the meat. It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong, but you're just supposed to say this meat is for Yom Tif, let's say, as opposed to saying for Pesach, because then it doesn't look like you're buying meat for a korban for Pesach. Okay, from Lefikach, which is the tefillah we say at the end, we'll get to the meat by the Shulchan Aruch. When you say Lefikach, that's when you have to pick up the cup, so therefore you cover over the matzahs. From Lefikach and on, including halal, you're supposed to hold the kos. Okay, okay, so that's basically that. So then you make the bracha on the kos, again the same thing. Try and drink the whole cup, etc., etc. We discussed that, and then fine. That's the end of Magid. Then we're up to Rachza. You wash your hands, even if your hands are clean. You still wash your hands. There are those that say that if you know for sure your hands were 100% clean, and you didn't scratch your hair, and you didn't touch your shoes or touch any parts of your body that are normally covered, and you should specifically touch your shoes so that the washing that you're making, now you can make a bracha on. But that's just a chumrah. Okay, so we make the bracha on this one. You do make on you wash your hands. In this one, you do make a bracha on the tilas yadayim. And then we're up to matzi matzah. Okay, now matzi matzah is where I find from most people that the most confusion about how much matzah you're supposed to eat. That's what gets everybody confused. So the first thing is before you do matzi matzah, there's only one mitzvah the whole year of eating that we get that's from the Torah, and that's matzah. Meaning there's other mitzvahs from the Torah to eat, but the only specific food that we have to eat a whole year is matzah. That's why everybody gets very strict with the measurements and how much matzah you're supposed to eat, because it's mitzvah from the Torah to eat matzah. Okay, so that should be announced. They're told to people that right now we're doing the mitzvah of matzah. Okay, now the way you're supposed to do it is after you wash, now you pick up all three matzahs. You take the top, the middle, and the bottom, hold it in your hands. You make hamoitzi lechem min haaretz. Then you drop the bottom matzah, right? And then you make the bracha of alachilas matzah. We'll get back to this in a minute. Again, you hold all three. Then when you're finished, you drop the bottom, and then you make the bracha of alachilas matzah. Then you break the top and the middle matzah at the same time, and then you have a piece of each one, which we're going to get to exactly what's going on there. But yeah, so that's that. Now, what are the measurements for matzah? Okay, basically, it's now what's difficult is that a lot of the Haggadahs say that you're supposed to have a third of a matzah, a quarter of a matzah, 2/3 of a matzah. Matzahs have different thickness, so it's very hard to gauge it based on the size of the matzah because it all depends on the thickness. So the main thing going with our theme is that the main thing is not to get stressed out. Okay, now the Chazon Ish went with, and I shouldn't really start with this measurement, but I'm just doing it just to tell everybody, just so everybody should be calm, right? That they're not eating enough matzah. The Chazon Ish went with a measurement from Reb Chaim Volozhin, and there's a letter from the Stipler, right? That's Reb Chaim Kanievsky's father, saying that the minimum, the real shear to be yaitza is the size of the palm of your hand, or slightly more than the palm of your hand. That is the real measurement to have, and that's it. Okay, that's quite a small measurement that should be tolerable by most people. Again, we try and go bigger than that, but if you have that amount, you are definitely yaitza. Okay? Yeah.
Times
so now,
1 or times 2?
1. Very good. I don't know who asked that, but that's an excellent question, and we're going to discuss that right now. Okay? Can you get me that I'll go to the east, please. Okay, we're going to get to that right now. Now let's first discuss what the classic measurements are, give or take. Okay, the best to be yaitza is 1/3 of a hand matzah. Okay, 1/3 of a hand matzah, 2/3 of a machine matzah. Okay, that's the best. That's to be yaitza according to all opinions. Good is 1/4 of a hand matzah, 1/3 of a machine matzah, and then if necessary is the palm of the hand. Again, there's three. The best is 1/3 of a hand, and 2/3 of a machine. Next is 1/4 of a hand matzah or 1/3 of a machine. And then if necessary, like we discussed, the palm of the hand. Okay, now, this, I don't want to risk losing everybody, right, with this next thing, because it'll be slightly complicated, but I'm going to try and make it a little clear. So somebody just asked do you need to have 2 of those or 1 of those? Right? The answer is you have to have 1. That measurement is all you have to have. You do not have to have 2 of those. For example, right? My son just brought me this. So now this is a actual size according to this Haggadah, which is the Haggadah that I just quoted. Obviously, you're not going to be able to tell exact size. My hands are very small, so I'm going to hold up my hand to it. Right? So this is obviously bigger than a palm of the hand. Right? But he's saying that this is the size of a machine matzah, which is around, like we said, it's around 2/3 of a matzah. Right, that's a machine matzah. Okay, this is the measurement that you have to have. Included in this measurement is 2 small kazayas. Meaning, a lot of people look in the Haggadah and say you're supposed to have 2 kazayas of matzah. Right, so they think you have to have 2 of these. That is not the case according to 99% of opinions. This measurement and the measurements that you see that everybody has is including 2 small kazayas. Now, I'll just try and explain where we're coming from. Basically, there's an issue having nothing to do with matzah, which is, we're saying 2 brachas, right? Like we said, hamoitzi lechem min haaretz and alachilas matzah. Is the hamoitzi lechem min haaretz going on the large matzah or on the broken matzah? Meaning on the top matzah or the middle matzah? Or and in the achilas matzah, that bracha, the second bracha we make, is that going on the top matzah or is that going on the middle matzah? Okay, so that's a disagreement, which one is going on which. So in order to get out of that issue, what we want you to have is have 1 kizayas from the top matzah and 1 kizayas from the middle matzah, right? That's fair. I think that's straightforward. So people read that and they think, okay, so this Haggadah had a picture of a matzah on it. I have to have one from the middle that size and 1 from the top that size. No, The answer is absolutely not. You don't have to. Now, what are we saying, right? It's just a contradiction what I just said, right? I just said you have to have, not me, but the Paisach can say you have to have 2 kizesim, one from the middle and one from the top. And now we're saying that you don't have to. So the answer is very simple. I mean, it's not very simple, but it's relatively simple. Basically, there's different measurements for how much a kizayis is. Now, a kizayis, if you say, 1 second, is an olive, right? So an olive is tiny, right? Or you have the Costco olives, like my brother pointed out, then the Costco olives are 3 times the size or 4 times the size, right? So which olive are we talking about, right? So that's a big question. So the Tzlach, who was the Noida Yehuda, said that it seems like our measurements have shrunk, meaning our olives and our eggs have shrunk. So therefore, we have to double all of our measurements, meaning if you have a regular size olive, you have to double it. So anytime it says in Shulchan Aruch you have to have a kizayis, so then you have to double it because our olives and our eggs have shrunk. Okay, that's a whole complicated thing, what is cheshbon was. The question is, do we go with that or not? So the Mishnah Berurah and many others say that if you're doing a mitzvah d'oraisa, you have to double the measurement. If you're doing a mitzvah d'rabbanan, you don't. That's why with challah on a regular Shabbos, that's from the rabbanan, not from the Torah. So therefore we can go with smaller measurements. But like we discussed, matzah on Paisach by night is Torah, from the Torah. So therefore we want to make sure we get it for sure. So therefore, we want you to double the measurements. Okay? But that's only from the Torah. When we're saying that you're supposed to have a kizayis from the middle matzah and from the top matzah, that's not from the Torah, that's not even from the Rabbanon. That's just a brachas issue of whether to get out of making a bracha levatala. We don't know which bracha goes on which. Right? We don't know if the hamaitzi goes on the large or the hamaitzi goes on the middle. Or if we say that al-achilas matzah goes on the large or al-achilas matzah goes on the middle. Therefore, we say to have a kizayis from each. But that kizayis does not have to be a double-sized kizayis because that's not from the Torah. So therefore, what we're basically saying is that in order to be yaitza matzah, since it's from the Torah, you have one large kizayis. Included in a large kizayis, since it was doubled, is one kizayis from the middle and one kizayis from the top. So therefore, you included in your large kizayis measurement is a half a kizayis from the middle and a half a kizayis from the top. So therefore, when they say 1/3 of a matzah, that's all you need is 1/3 of a matzah, or 2/3 of a machine. And if you want to be makel, a quarter or a third. And that's why what we're saying is that double kizayis is a chumrah, meaning we try and be machmer for a daraisa to go with what the Noida Yehuda said, in that our measurements have doubled. But really, you don't have to go with that. Hence, the opinion that all you need is the size of a palm to be yaitza, which is 100%. So if you have a hard time taking down matzah because of stomach issues or you don't feel well, etc., then a palm size of matzah will suffice. And again, when we're saying that you have 2 kizesim, that's included in the large kizayis. So therefore, whatever measurements you're getting, you only have to have one of them, and that's it. Okay? I hope that's clear. I hope I didn't put everybody to sleep or whatever it is, but that's basically what we have. Yeah?
Kids have to have a share.
Kids should lechatchila have a shear, but obviously their shear is going to be much smaller because their mouths are much smaller. You don't stress out the kids, right? Many people measure out the matzahs before. Most gedolim that I know of did not measure out the matzahs. They just, you look at it, you eyeball it. Obviously, these matzahs are different thicknesses, different things. They make the charts just to try and make it a little easier for you. But the main thing is to know that the palm size is what you're going to for sure be yotze, which almost everybody is going to be to eat that much, and try to have 1/3 of a matzah, whatever the 1/3 of a hand matzah, and that's basic. Okay, now.
Average palm or person's palm?
What?
Palm of the person or average palm?
It doesn't. It means it's not so specific. It's around the size of an average person's palm of his hand. Okay. Now, what's interesting, and I don't want to harp on this for too much longer, but since this is only a brachas issue, maybe this is only an issue for the leader of the seder. Meaning, if I'm sitting by somebody else's seder and he makes a motzi, I don't have my own 3 matzahs. I'm eating from him. I didn't make any bracha al achilas matzah. He was saying it for me, right? So then I don't have this whole double kizay. What I need 2 kizaysim for? I didn't have a brachas issue. I'm just eating from him. right? And then you don't have, so you really don't have this issue. So that's why you can even be more lenient if you're not the leader of the Seder, that you don't even have to have as much, even though the minig is to have that much because you want to eat that much because it's from the Torah, okay? So even though Ramosha Feinstein writes that really you want every 2-3 adults to be able to be included and get a kazayas matzah from the top and from the middle, so Ramosha Feinstein says every 2 or 3 adults should have their own set of matzahs. Some people, I think most people don't keep this, but many do. So then like this, each person gets a kazayas from the middle matzah and a kazayas from the top matzah, and then they can get a kazayas from the afikomen matzah. But if you don't, what you do is you add on matzah. So again, I almost forgot to say this. So let's say you have one person leading the Seder, and only one person has matzahs. So what do? You basically have to add on, because there's not enough olives worth of matzahs in the top matzah and the middle matzah. So you have to add on from other matzahs. So you bring a box of matzah, you give out the matzah before you make hamotzi, because otherwise there's going to be an interruption. If you start making hamotzi and then you start giving out matzahs and measurements, that's going to be an interruption. So what you do is you give out the matzahs to everybody, and then you just give out a little piece from the middle matzah and the top matzah to all the people that are by the Seder. That's the proper way to do it, okay? Again, you should be eating that measurement, a third, a quarter, whatever it is, within 2 minutes, preferably, but up till 9 minutes, and no talking until you eat that amount. But we're going to get to the no talking in a minute, okay? You also have to lean. Men have to lean. If you don't lean, then since you don't have the adding on to a kais issue, like if you forget to make the leaning on the first cup or the second cup, so we're saying we don't want you to drink another cup because it looks like you're adding a cup on, but by hamotzi you don't have that issue. So therefore, if you ate your matzah without leaning, then you should eat it again. This is not a weight measurement. The matzah is not a weight measurement. It's a volume measurement, but that's the Sfardim go with the weight measurement, but it's not, it's really a volume measurement. Okay. I just want to move on because I'm afraid I'm putting everybody to sleep over here. Fine. Now the next step is moror. Okay. So you're supposed to eat moror. That's a derabanan nowadays. Moror was only a deraisa when there was a korban Paisach. Unfortunately, we're in Golus. We don't have a korban Paisach. So therefore, moror is derabanan. Okay. You're supposed to dip the moror in charoises. Now, whatever moror you're dipping in, so people want to make it taste real good, so they dip it into the charoises, which is sweet. You're not supposed to dip it in. If you dip it in and then you're supposed to knock it off. It's just supposed to take out some of the bitter parts of the romaine lettuce. So you're going to say if you're eating romaine lettuce, it's not bitter at all. So the answer is that really romaine lettuce is bitter. It's just when they harvest it now, it's already not. It's no longer bitter, but really it does come from something bitter. Whether you take horseradish or lettuce, that's up to you. Some mix the horseradish together with the lettuce. What are the measurements? So you want to have a fluid 1.69 ounces, 1.7 ounces, which is like a shot glass, it's about a shot glass and a half, right? You fill it up with the equivalent of filling it up, or good is 1.1. And then 0.7, which is like 3/4 of a shot glass, is the minimum. Okay? Again, 1.6,
romaine lettuce
0.7, 1.1, and 0.7. What do you say?
Is that for romaine lettuce also, or is that only for the horseradish?
That's for romaine lettuce. Right? So again, it depends which type you have. If you have the stalk, so you'll have to have less. If you have the leafy, then it's going to have to be a little bigger. But again, it's really not that difficult. If you have the horseradish, then that could be a little bit difficult because if it's bitter, right? It can be hard to eat. But I think most do it with the lettuce, and that's fine. Again, the same amount of time should be eaten within 2 minutes, up to 9 minutes. Okay. When you say the bracha of al achilas moror, you should have in mind the moror that you're going to be eating by the sandwich, by kairach. Okay. The moror has to be chewed and not swallowed. You can't just swallow it because then you really don't taste it. There's a very interesting Corona Shiloh also that came up, which is that many people have lost their sense of taste. Yeah, so maybe moror will bring the taste back. But if you don't taste the moror, it's really not so simple. If you have no sense of taste whatsoever, and you're not tasting the bitter, then it's not so simple that you're going to be yotze in the mitzvah of Mara. Okay, but so what? What's wrong with eating it? The bracha is the issue, right? So many Paisach are saying that if the person does not have a sense of taste, they should have somebody else make the bracha of Mara for them, so they don't have a bracha levatala issue. Okay, they certainly should still. A guy can't say, okay, I have no taste, therefore I am not eating Mara. No, you have to eat the Mara. Just a question of a bracha.
Is it better to have in mind when you eat the potato? To have in mind the maror if you know you can't taste?
But you're not making a bracha on the potato.
So maybe you should make one. Eat a kazayas.
I'm saying you are making a bracha on the potato. I'm sorry. You're making a bracha and you have it in mind. Well, you're having it in mind anyways. But that's outside Dama.
Ah.
You're not making a bracha on the maror by the thing. Yeah. I mean, maybe you can't make maror then. No, you can't do that. Right? Okay. Fine. So that's basically maror. You don't lean. But when eating maror, you don't lean because that's not showing any sort of freedom. That's showing the bitterness. Now with kairech, okay? So kairech we have, as everybody knows, the famous lines in the Haggadah, Zeichel Mikdash Kehilel. Oh, it's getting late already. It says Zeichel Mikdash Kehilel, right? So what's going on there exactly? So first of all, it's a machlokes in the Gemara, like we discussed, right? A lot of this is coming from the Gemara, from the Mishnah. It's a machlokes in the Mishnayos. How do you eat matzah and maror? Okay, it's a machlokes in the 10th parak in Pesachim, whether it says al matzos u'meroirim yochlu, right? You're supposed to eat the korban Paisach on matzah and maror. Okay, does that mean matzah and maror together, or does it mean matzah and then maror? Okay, so that's a machlokes in the Mishnah, right? One opinion is that you eat the matzah first, taste it, you're good, then you eat the maror. And the other opinion, which is Hillel, is that you eat the matzah and maror together in the same bite. Okay? So the Gemara does not paskin. So like we said before, when the Gemara doesn't paskin, we try and get both opinions in. So therefore, that's exactly what we're doing. First, we do the chachamim, which is we eat the matzah, then we eat the maror separate, and then we want to be yotze Hillel, so we eat the matzah and the maror together. Right? Both opinions. Okay, that's very nice. So therefore, the first thing to know is that there is no talking. Because when are you making the bracha for the matzah and the maror? You're making hamaytzi lechem and aretz, and then you're eating matzah, which you already said you're not supposed to talk till you eat the matzah. Then you're making maror, a bracha on maror. Fine, but according to Hillel, which is the sandwich, when are you making the bracha? Right? The bracha was made before. Therefore, there is no talking from when you make hamaytzi lechem and aretz until after the sandwich. There's no talking other than what's necessary for the meal, like pass me the maror, pass me the charaisis. But you can't say like after the matzah, you say, "Ooh, I'm hot. Ooh, that was long," or all the other comments that we say. That's not allowed. That's not allowed to be said because we maybe have to do the mitzvah like Hillel, and you're not allowed to talk from the bracha till after you do the mitzvah. Right? So therefore, there's no bracha. There's no talking from hamaytzi lechem and aretz until after the sandwich, which could be quite a decent amount of time. It could be 5-10 minutes, which is not easy for anybody to be quiet for, right? Especially after the long magid. But there's no talking because again, the bracha for Hillel was made way before, right? So again, there's no talking from hamaytzi until after Hillel, okay? Which is even so much so that when do you say Zeichel Mikdash Hillel? Do you say it before you eat the sandwich? Or do you eat it? Do you say it after? So the most Haggadah say you say it before. The Mishnah Berurah says you don't understand. How can you say Zeichel Mikdash Hillel? That's like talking in between the hamaytzi and the sandwich until you yotze mitzvah. Therefore, he says he thinks you should say it afterwards. Most poskim can say not like that. So whichever way you do it is fine. I think most say it before, but meaning if it's a whole issue whether you're even supposed to say the word Zeichel Mikdash Hillel before you eat it, because it might be an interruption between the brachas and the sandwich, then for sure there's no talking allowed, right? Again, if you did talk, there you don't have to make a new bracha, but there should be no talking. Okay. Now, what is the zeichel mikdash kehillah? This is something also that's it's important and something to explain to people. What's zeichel mikdash kehillah? It's a zeicher. We just said it's a disagreement. The Chachamim say you got to eat the matzah and then you got to eat the maror, each one separate. And Hillel says you got to eat them together. So why is it a zeicher lemikdash kehillah? we're doing like Hillel. We're doing both opinions. So the answer is very simple. In that, and it's an important answer. And that is that according to Hillel, nowadays you have to eat it like the Chacham. Meaning, according to Hillel, if you would just eat a sandwich and that's it, you are not Yotze. Okay? Why don't we just eat a sandwich and just do like Hillel, and then we'd be Yotze? The answer is even Hillel holds nowadays you're not Yotze. Why? Because Maror is a Derabanan in Bezman Hazeh. Hillel, when he said you eat them together, was talking about in the days of the Korban Paisach. So the mitzvah of Maror was from the Torah. Mitzvah matzah was from the Torah, and therefore you can have two tastes of Torah food in your mouth, meaning the mitzvah daraisa of matzah and the mitzvah daraisa of maror in your mouth at the same time, and those tastes won't cancel each other out because they're both from the Torah. However, nowadays that maror is the rabbanon and matzah is daraisa, the taste of the maror, which is rabbinic from the rabbanon, is going to cancel out the taste of the matzah. So therefore, even Hillel says that nowadays you have to do like the Chachamim, first eat the matzah, which is from the Torah, and then eat the maror, which is from the Rabbanon. Okay? Again, Hillel himself nowadays would hold you do not get the mitzvah if you make the sandwich. Therefore, it's only a Zeicher L'Mikdash Hillel that when the Beis HaMikdash will be built, which hopefully will be this year, then we're going to have a sandwich according to Hillel. So that's why it's a Zeicher to the Mikdash of Hillel, because even Hillel himself holds that nowadays you have to eat matzah separate and maror separate, but it's a zeicher that when Be'ezus Hashem will have the Beis HaMikdash, then we're doing it now so that we know that when Be'ezus Hashem will be a Beis HaMikdash, then we're going to have to make a sandwich in order to be Yaitza according to Hillel, and then we have all the opinions of Chum and Hillel. But again, nowadays you are not Yaitza according to Hillel. Hence the word zeicher l'mikdash. It's just a remembrance that when the Beis HaMikdash will be, then we're going to have to do a sandwich. Okay, so that's basically that. Whether you eat it when you're leaning or not, you really should eat this sandwich. Again, I hate to call it sandwich, but just for lack of a better way of describing it, but the kairech should be eaten while you're leaning. But if you didn't lean, then it's fine. Again, when you say Zeichel Mikdash Hillel, before, after, most say it before, but you could say it after. Fine. Then we're up to Shulchan Aruch, right? Shulchan Aruch should also be eaten while leaning. It's preferable to eat the meal by leaning, but again, that's our nowadays. We don't lean when we eat, so therefore it's not necessary. Others, many have the minhag not to have dips. Dips is we're very in style to have dips nowadays. Many have the minhag to have no dips by the Seder. Again, if you don't have this minhag, again, no stress. Just throwing it out there. Why? Because we already have two dippings, right? In the Manashtani, you dip twice. We're talking about the two dippings that we do, right? The maror in the charoises and the potato or the vegetable in the salt water. If you have more dips, then it just makes confusion. Okay? Shulchan Aruch, you shouldn't stuff yourself because you need to have, there's still the mitzvah of afikomen later. So you have to make sure that you have room for that, because if you have no room for it, then you may not be yotze to the mitzvah of afikomen. Okay? And then many have a minhag to eat the hard-boiled egg for different reasons, because Paisach, the classic reason is Paisach falls out on the same night of the week as Tisha B'Av falls out, and we don't have the Beis HaMikdash, so, and that represents the avelus of not having the Beis HaMikdash. No roasted meat or chicken. Okay, this is a common question. You're allowed to have meat at the Seder. It's just not roasted, right? Not barbecue, not roasted. Now, how do you define roasted? Roasted means that it has no liquid added. If you add liquid to it, then you are allowed to have meat by the Seder. So pepper steak or sesame chicken or anything like that is perfectly fine to have. Pot roast is debatable whether you're allowed to have pot roast, because pot roast is basically, it cooks in its own liquids in a pot. So some say, well, the Korban Paisach, if it was cooked in a pot, no, let me explain the reason first. The reason why you're not supposed to have roasted meat is because then it looks like a Korban Paisach, right? So pot roast, if you cook the Korban Paisach in a pot roast, you are not yotze. So many say, so why can't I have pot roast? Others say, no, it's just we don't want to start making confusion. So therefore, you should have meat with at least added liquid. So basically, what the Paisach can say, as long as you add a little bit more liquid than normal, then that's enough. Okay, so some say an inch, 2 inches, whatever it is. As long as there's liquid added to your meat, then you're allowed to have meat by the Seder. Okay? That's schnitzel. What about schnitzel? That's schnitzel or grilled chicken. So grilled chicken is out because that's really grilled. But what about cutlets, chicken cutlets, schnitzel? So that, if it clearly is not a carbon Paisach, which I believe chicken cutlets are clearly not roasted, so then you're allowed to have it. So there is, if that's what you really want to have, then you're allowed to have chicken cutlets by the Seder, because nobody's going to confuse it with something that's roasted, right? And even if some say, well, chicken, why can't you have chicken? Chicken was no good to be part of the carbon Pesach. That doesn't make a difference. They made a takana that it's I don't know, takana the halacha was said by all meats that you shouldn't have it roasted, even if it's chicken. Okay, fine. That's Shulchan Aruch. Okay, tzafun is afikomen. There are some opinions that hold that the main mitzvah of matzah by the Seder night is the afikomen matzah, not the matzah at the beginning. Okay, so really you're supposed to have 2 kezesim, right? Even though really you should only have to have 1 kezayis, but the minig is to try and have 2 kezesim if you could survive with eating that much. Okay, again, best is 1/3 of a hand matzah, 2/3 of machine matzah, like we discussed. Okay, you're supposed to be leaning when you eat the afikomen. There are those that say, by the way, there's an opinion, a major opinion, that says that since the afikomen may be the main mitzvah, when do you make the bracha on matzah? By motzi matzah. So therefore, no talking during the entire meal, because you don't want to make an interruption between the bracha of al-chilas matzah and the afikomen. That's already a hard thing. That's a really hard thing to do. But some people, it's taka better that they should be quiet. But we don't paskin like that opinion. But afikomen is also something to take very serious. Hopefully, it comes back in one piece, or not in matzah meal, which unfortunately a lot of times it does when the kids start fighting. But hey, if that's what gets the kids to stay up, so then great, and with the whole negotiations, okay. Afikomen is supposed to be finished before chatzos. It should be finished before chatzos. Okay, really halal. It's better for halal to be finished before chatzos too. That's one is much more difficult. I'm not going to get into the whole tanai that you can make, but theoretically, there is a tanai that you could say if you're up against chatzos, you could eat your afikomen and then continue with your meal. You'll ask if you want to know what that's talking about, because it's getting late. Because you eat it before chatzos, and you should eat it in one place, in one seat. You should not be moving around the table, because the halacha is that afikomen is only supposed to be eaten in one house. So, but even if you're not going to go from one house to the other house, but you shouldn't move from one seat to the other. You should sit in one seat and eat the afikomen. After the afikomen, there's no eating or drinking. Okay? If you did eat, let's say you had some cake on the table for dessert, and you ate afikomen, and then you decided to go eat some cake, then really you got to eat the afikomen again. Okay? Now, this is a common question. So people get thirsty after the Seder is over. Can they have? And they said you're not allowed to eat after the afikomen. Water and seltzer are 100% allowed to be, even flavored seltzer is allowed. You're allowed to have, and some even say soda. Okay, on the second night of Paisach, after the Seder, all drinks are allowed. Tea, coffee, whatever it is, you're allowed to have. You're allowed to have that after the second night. On the first night, soda, water is allowed. I don't know. Somebody asked me about how about using mouthwash after the Seder on the first night. That really ruins the taste of afikomen, I think. So I'm not sure. Probably that's best not to do that. Okay, that's tzafun. Baruch is birchas hamazon. Yes.
There's not enough 2 kezesim in afikomen one Seder.
So thank you. That's a good question. If you don't have enough in the afikomen, so then you just add on matzah from other matzahs, and that's fine. And if the negotiations are breaking down and the kids don't want to give up the matzah, and you're getting to the chatzos, so then you just take other matzah, and then you play hardball with the kids, and you just eat other matzah, and that's it. Okay. Then we're up to birchas hamazon, baruch. If your kaisis, like we said before, between the first and second kais, you don't have to clean it out. But birchas hamazon, which is from the Torah, you should clean out the kaisis before birchas hamazon. Okay. If there's 3 men there, so you're making a mazumin, the leader for both nights, normally we give the one to lead the benching, we give it out to a guest. By the Seder, you're supposed to give it out to the person leading the Seder. For both Sedarim, the one leading the Seder is supposed to say it, right? And that's basically it for Birchas Hamazon. Then you pour the 5th cup of wine, that's for Eliyahu Hanavi. You're not supposed to drink it at the Seder, right? You open the front door and you say Shvei Chamascha. Many people have the minhag that you take the wine from the kais of Eliyahu Hanavi and you use it for Kiddush the next morning. Okay, you shouldn't leave it out open, right? But I don't have that in my sheet, but so that's what many people say to do. That's just like many say that the wing, the chicken wing or the shank bone, whatever it is, should be eaten the second day during the day meal. Okay? Meaning, because basically when you do a mitzvah with something, you want to continue doing a mitzvah. So since you poured it for the 5th cup and we're not drinking that, so then you save it for Kiddush. Again, you don't have to, and if it gets lost, no stressing out about it. Okay, then halal, you pour the 4th cup. This is the only halal of the year that you say sitting down. We don't make a bracha on this halal, right? Just like all halals that are said without a minyan, you don't say it. But even with a minyan, even if you have a minyan, you say that you don't say it. Now this is halacha, another halacha that gets lost on people, and it's a very interesting halacha, at least I think it's interesting, is that in shul, when you daven halal with a minyan, so you say Haidu Lashem, right? The leader of the chazan says Haidu, and everybody repeats after them, after Haidu. And then Ana Hashem, and whatever it is that goes on in shul, if you have 3 people at your Seder, and the Mishnah Berurah says you should actually try and find somebody, meaning if you can't do that this year, unfortunately, if you have 2 people at your Seder, you should go to your neighbor and ask your neighbor to come over, and you're supposed to have 3 people. If you have 3 people there, then you can do this just like we do in shul with a minyan. And the leader says Haidul Hashem, and everybody repeats after. The interesting thing about the Seder night is that a woman is included in this, and so are kids that understand. Okay? So basically, if you have even 3 women, if you have 3 women sitting at a Seder together, one should say Haidu, and then the 2 should repeat after them. And even if you have 1 woman and 2 men, and the woman wants to be the one to lead the Haidu, then she's allowed to do that too. Even though the Seder, the leader of the Seder should do it, but if a woman wants to do that, we allow a woman to do this, because women are just as much chayiv to say halal as a man. Maybe not as much as a man, but they are required to do it. So therefore, a woman could lead it. Certainly, you include the woman in the 3. So if a woman is putting kids to sleep or in the kitchen, they should be called in, and a kid should be called as long as the kid is old enough to understand. So that could be like the age of 17, 18, whatever it is. No, that's a joke. Okay, I'm taking 9, 10, or whatever, 11 years old. So then that's they should be called. So you have 3 people. That's what you should do. Okay. After halal, so then we make the bracha on the kais. Now, by the way, why do we do the repeat back and forth, Haidul Hashem? Because just like when we want to say, you say Tehillim together, and when you want to try and inspire people, so one person says it, everybody answers. So that's what we're saying, Haidul Hashem. We're also making it much more chashuv by doing repeat after me. That's why it's so important to try and get the people to repeat after halal. So really, by then already, most people they're shot already with the stomachs, so they don't want to drink so much. So really, according to Ikar Halacha, like we discussed, you only have to have roiv or revius. However, it's better if you make sure you at least have a revius. Again, it's the same halacha. You should have the whole cup, most of the cup, a revius, roiv revius. But if you don't have roiv revius, then you can't make. If you don't have a revius, right? Then you can't make bracha achronim. So either have very small amount where you know for sure you don't have to make a bracha achronim, or have enough that you can make a bracha achronim. Or if you're not sure, have somebody say ala gefen to be mitzi you in the halal. Okay.
Could you use the Kaisel for the 4th cup? Use the wine from that?
No, you're supposed to. The kashal should be a different wine than the 4 cups. It should be a separate wine. Again, you're not. If you're running out of wine, it's not gonna. You can use the wine. You just pour it back into the bottle, right? Now, nirtza is those extra songs that we sing, right? It's very interesting halacha. What's more important, to stay up all night by Paisach or to stay up all night by Shavuos? By staying up all night by Shavuos, it's just a minig because Klal Yisrael slept, whatever it is. By Paisach, the halacha is you have to stay up all night if you don't get tired, which obviously is not happening. But theoretically, I don't see a way around this. If you're not tired, meaning if you took your nap, like we discussed before, and you took too long a nap, and you're not tired, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is, then you are not allowed to go to sleep. You have to continue discussing Yetzias Mitzrayim or learning about Mitzrayim, etc., etc. Right? It's more important. That's the halacha. Only until you get so tired that you fall asleep. Yeah, somebody want to say something? Okay. If you yawn, I don't know if yawning means enough to go to sleep. We yawn all day, right? It means that you have to be very tired. Again, don't get stressed out about this because you have to be normal. But bottom line is, if you're feeling full of energy, then you should stay up and learn the Haggadah, learn about Mitzrayim, whatever it is that you're going to do. Say Shir Hashirim, many of the minutes say Shir Hashirim, right? Kriya Shema Lamita. You do not say the entire Kriya Shema Lamita Paisach by night because it's considered a Leil Shimurim. Hashem is watching out for us. Just the first parsha and the bracha of Amapil. For those that make Amapil, you say Shema and then the bracha of Amapil, nothing else. Because Kriya Shema Lamita is there for you for protection overnight, and we're protected anyways. So some have the meaning that you don't have to lock the door. I don't know. I mean, it's not, shouldn't be fully locked. You don't have to sleep with your door totally unlocked or open, right? If it's not a safe neighborhood, Jenny, you lock your doors, but you're supposed to show some sort of sign. That's basically where it comes from. That you're supposed to show that a type of sign that you have faith that Hashem is watching you that night. But I don't know if it's locked or closed. I'm not exactly sure what you call that.
Shema.
The Shema applies to both nights. Yes, the Shema applies to both nights. Okay, I'm sorry if we went a little long. We should all be zeicha that the Seder this year should be in Yerushalayim, and we should hear all the Sudas Tovas. And stay on if anybody has questions.
Just a reminder for those who were part of the shir from before Shkia time, they might want to have to daven Myra.
Oh yes, thank you. I didn't daven Myra. Yes, no should daven Myra. And also there will be a recording posted. I don't know exactly when, but I'll send it out exactly when it'll be posted.
2 questions. One, are you allowed to snack Erev Pesach after Chatzos?
Good question. I didn't discuss that. Snacks are allowed, but big meals should not be allowed. Yeah.
Do you have to, regarding kashering the sink, do you have to not use it for 24 hours?
You have to not use it for boiling hot chametz for 24 hours.
Is that different for Svardim?
Svardim, most of the time, Svardim don't really have to kasher sinks if you really want to get down to the bottom of it. Svardim don't really have to kasher sinks, but you should. If you're kashering it, you should do it properly and not use it. But it's very difficult. It has to be hot chametz more than 110 degrees.
So as long as you don't use it for boiling 24 hours, you're fine.
Boiling chametz for 24 hours, yeah.
What does that? What does boiling chametz mean?
Meaning they take a pasta and pour it into your sink, right? That would be boiling hot chametz.
But you can use it to wash dishes or anything regular use.
Yes. But again, we want to be, for safety, we say not to use it for hot 24 hours. For cold, you can use it.
What about Zmanim? What about Zmanim for the Seder, the second night?
Yeah, what do you mean?
42, 72, 60.
Oh, if you keep, I should have discussed that. It's a good one. I guess we are discussing it, right? For second night, it should be later. Like, so whatever you keep for Shabbos, you should wait.
And if you hold Shabbos in L'chumra, like really L'chumra, just...
Yeah, so then there's room, then there's room to be Mekel. Yeah, then there's room to be Mekel. Yes.
Yaakov, if you live in an apartment building, when you do Elio Anovi, it's just your apartment door, right?
Yes, you don't have to go downstairs. Yeah,
Got
you don't have to go downstairs.
Can a 9-year-old lead the Haidu and Ana Hashem?
It depends on his maturity.
Depends
on his maturity.
But can he lead it? Can he lead it?
A kid could theoretically lead it, but the leader of the Haggadah is the leader.
But if it keeps them excited and into it,
if it keeps them excited, 9-year-old. I think I don't remember what the Mishra says about leading. He certainly could be included if he's. I don't remember what he says about. I don't know. I'll text you whatever. Text me as a reminder. I'll check it out.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Can I-
no
Thanks
problem.
very much.
Can I wash baby bottles in the Paisach sink that it's kidneys?
You're supposed to do kidneys, unless you Sephardi, you should keep it in the bathroom sink. You're supposed to wash out the bottles and take care of them in the bathroom sink. That being said, if you did it in your own sink and it wasn't hot, then it's no problem. No reason to stress out about it.
Do I need to cover the spout to my faucet?
No, you can kosher it. Kosher it. Pour boiling hot water on it.
How about the aerator piece?
The aerator piece, so they say, the rabbis say to change it. If you can't, and I think locally here, I think they were running out of aerators. So you just kosher it. Yeah, do you have to add shmura matzah to the matzah? If you're going to be using the matzah for matzah's mitzvah, for the mitzvah of the night, then you should have shmura matzah for even the ones that being added on. Yeah, it should be shmura matzah. But the rest of the matzah eating during the meal does not have to be shmura matzah.
I agree.
Right?
Can I?
So what do you? Somebody just asked about the Tanai. Okay, so the Avnei Nezer said a Tanai, and he said basically what you do is, he said that there's two opinions, that the afikomen had to be eaten by chatzos or not, right? So he said either way, if you go with the opinions that the afikomen had to be eaten by chatzos, so you can eat afikomen by chatzos, and then after that, since it's no longer the mitzvah's over, so now you're allowed to eat whatever you want. And if you say that it's not, then the mitzvah goes a whole night, so then you're allowed to eat. You're allowed to continue your meal. So you eat afikomen, and then you eat your meal, and then either way you are going to be yaitza. That's basically what the Avnei Nezer says. Many disagreed with him, but that's basically the Avnei Nezer's Tanai. You certainly have what to rely on if you want to extend your seder all night, and you can do that. Again, you eat the afikomen before chatzos, and the Tanai is that if the halacha is like the opinions that say that the afikomen is only till chatzos, and now you ate afikomen by chatzos, and now you're allowed to do whatever you want afterwards. And if the opinions are that afikomen can be eaten all night, so then you have a whole night. You don't have to stop at chatzos. We only stop at chatzos because we want to be strict like both opinions. Yeah? It got cut off through what you just texted. Yeah? Anything
What about
else?
cooking on Yom Tov for
I also know
Shabbos?
not to use makeup.
Oh, I didn't discuss Erev Tavshilin at all. Okay, I'm going to be tweeting out anyways. I love Erev Tavshilin. Yeah. What do you want to know? Cooking what?
Are you allowed to use makeup remover on Yom Tov?
Without cotton, yes.
What does that mean, without cotton?
You can't use the cotton removers because that's a squeezing issue, schita issue. But to remove makeup just with your hand, you take the makeup remover, put it on your hand, do it that way, then that's allowed.
Okay.
What do we need? What do we need for Erev Tavshilin? What foods, ingredients?
You need an egg. Basically, the minhag is to take an egg and a matzah, and you make the Erev Tavshilin. You make it on Erev Yom Tov, right? And if you didn't, then you can do it actually. You can actually do it on the first day, and you can make again a Tanai. You could say, if today's weekday, I'm allowed to make the Erev Tavshilin, and if today's Yom Tov, then Friday's not Yom Tov, right? Because really, the whole Iker din is that Yom Tov is only one day, so you can make a Tanai, and it's a similar Tanai, and therefore, if you forgot to do it Erev Yom Tov, you can do it on the first day Yom Tov. I'm going to be tweeting out. I don't know if you're on my text or not, but I'm going to be texting out halachas of the Erev Tavshilin.
How about one of those makeup remover wipes?
If you use baby wipes, then you're allowed. If somebody sell chametz. If you use baby wipes, then you're allowed. If you don't use baby wipes, then you shouldn't.
I use baby wipes, but I'm not even.
Tell him I'll be in a minute.
I'm not even master.
You know what, Yitzi? You want to give him a star?
Yeah.
Yeah, give him a pen. Yeah.
Yeah, see, beyond chazaka, hoitziyanu, whatever the word is. This is where the points come from.
Very good.
Do I need to get a new one of these, like a dish?
I can't see you. Hold on. Yeah, how come you're not popping? There you are.
One of these. It's like this is like half used already. And we keep refilling it.
No, that's fine. Unless you're putting it on your food, Simon. I don't know what they do down there in South Bend.
That could be the.
Are you making? I don't know. Oh, fine. You're here.
Are you making a siyum?
I am making a siyum. Yes.
On Zoom?
No, on my dining room table.
I was saying for those of us that are not making a siyum, can we watch you make a siyum?
I'm gonna charge admission.
Hot water. All right, Tzvi Yaakov.
You're talking to the wrong guy.
By the way, Tzvi Yaakov, the daf.
Yes.
Daf is due a siyum. We
I
never
know.
make
I'm
a
not
siyum
sure if I
on
should make a.
bracha.
I know. I don't want to make a siyum on brachas in case we make a siyum, but I'm thinking maybe to make a siyum on neither. I didn't make a siyum on neither.
Yes.
Oh, bloody hell.
Okay, Peretz. There's people still on there, yeah.
Hey, Rabbi Stein, what about gardeners? Do we have to cancel our gardeners?
For when? For Yom Tiv?
This and that.
Kolomayid? Yeah, you should cancel your gardeners. Yes, you really should cancel your gardeners.
This 5T market, if you place your order on Kilometer, even if they're not charging the credit card until after Yom Tiv.
Is that what they're doing? Is that the thing that they just arranged?
It says on the website that they're not charging any cards till after Paisach, but the same thing you said the other night on the show about ordering your food on Amazon before you go over Kilometer, so you get it.
So Eliyahu clarified it later, and he said that it's if you order it before Yom Tif and you're gonna get paid, you're gonna pay for it, and you just want it to hit like Amazon, you want it to be delivered 2 days, so you order on Kilometer because you want it to come after Yom Tif, so that's not allowed. But this might work. This might work because all you're doing is putting in an order that you.
They want all the orders in before Yom Tif.
That's an order, but you're not paying for it till afterwards. You're basically telling them that I plan on coming to you later on. So it's only an issue of Reitze B'Kiyumai, which is a machlokes, whether you really want that chametz to be. I think it's fine. I think it's fine to do that. Just pour hot water over it. Pour hot water over it.
You should stick it in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yaakov, one more question.
Yes.
Put my video
Just turn on that burner high and cover around it if you can.
Cover. Well, this they both come off. This comes off, and the black part comes off as well.
Right.
It unplugs. So do I have to cut? This is the drip pan. This is the drip pan you're talking about.
No, you don't have to cover that. You don't have to cover that.
And I don't have to cover the white either.
The white you should. The white you should cover.
The white I should cover. Fine.
Yeah.
And then when I put this on.
What are you saying?
When I put the burner on, do I have to put the tin foil on it to?
No.
If I'm not using my oven on Paisach, what's the best thing to do?
Can't hear. What was that?
I'm not using my oven on Paisach. Do I still have to clean it or kasher it?
No, but you got to cover it so that you don't end up using it by mistake. You're going to sell it to the guy. So
you should sell it? That's the best thing?
Yeah. I mean, that should be included in your sale, but yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
You have to cover
The whole hot, at least Magid, you should have your hat and jacket on. Yes, hat and jacket. I believe your hat and jacket should be on.
Aren't you wearing a kittel?
Well, that kittel is a buffer. You know what I mean?
Do you have if a married man's wearing
again,
a
if you normally wear a hat, if you don't normally wear a hat and jacket, so you don't need to wear a hat and jacket.
Do you have to?
Just Magid. Shulchan Aruch, you take it off and put it back on for Halloween.
You have to cover the oven with tin foil before you kasher it, or can you kasher it before?
No, you can kasher before and then cover it with tin foil. Yeah. Did he do it? He's done with his son? What? Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a plastic fruit basket that I used on here.
What?
And I used it on Paisach.
Fruit basket?
Plastic fruit basket.
If chametz didn't go near it, then
fruit.
yes. Yeah. If chametz didn't go near it, then 100%.
And if chametz went near it, then no.
What?
If chametz went near it, then
just if no hot
chametz wash it out.
Then you can wash it out well, and then you go.
Can I ask you about that plasma question now?
Oh, the plasma question.
My shaila is like this: they want 14 days of no symptoms. It's going to be on Yom Tif. Is it considered pikuach nefesh, safe life?
Is it proven that the plasma thing works?
It's I don't know if it's 100% proven. It's not parts.
What does it require you to do?
Give blood
on Yom Tif.
They want 14 days from no symptoms. For me, that's going to be second day Yom Tif.
I hear, and they can't. Well, I would. Where do you give the blood? Any lab?
Yulit. They do it. I can do it on Sunday also.
I mean, because it's Pikuach Nefesh, so I would tell you to walk there. Walk there. If a guy takes the blood.
21 days. I don't think it's
21 now.
I think it's 21 days clean.
Yeah.
No, 21 days, at least 21 days from when you tested positive, but 14 days, no symptoms.
I hear whatever. Theoretically, if you wanted to do it, I would say you could do it, but you got to walk to the lab and let a guy take the blood. Not a yid. You got to ask him if it's a yid. A yid can't do it, but if a guy does it, then fine. The doctor just quoted over here that you should do it after, but if he's saying it's a real pikuach nefesh, so then maybe. Yeah.
Right.
Alrighty, folks. Okay, if anybody has any other questions, text me.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, everybody should have a good Yom Tif and Chag Kosher B'Sameach.
Amen.
I tried.